What is good, YouTube? Quinway basketball analysis coming to y'all with that quick analysis while holding down analysisplayground.com at the same time. We're going to talk about Zion Williamson and his New Orleans Pelicans. A lot of people looked at this team as a playoff team the last 2 years and they have missed it and didn't even have a legitimate chance of winning record wise to get in the playing game. They was there, but they actually wasn't there at the same time, and they have underperformed. They changed coaches from Alvin Gentry to Van Gundy. Still didn't make the playoffs. Now they changed a lot of their roster, let some players go, went in different directions, have a new coach. Zion showed a lot of growth and a lot of improvement last year, but they ultimately ended up with injuries and also didn't really have a lot of young guys play. Plus, they didn't really show a lot of development. And Brandon Ingram regressed. He didn't look like an all-star, didn't look like that dominant ISO player that we was accustomed seeing, especially before Zion came back. And ultimately, they don't look like a fit that people love. People want to see them broke up. People don't want to see them together, and they haven't really came close to making the playoffs really either as a duo. So it do make you wonder, is there even a point of keeping them both together? You also got to question, what can you put around them? What can you put around Zion and Ingram since they changed? This is their third coach. Well, since they've been together, what player can really fix this roster? What player can really fix this team? Or we eventually see this duo being broke up, or even Zion leaving just because they can't get it done in New Orleans. That's the reality of what the Pelicans are looking like now and in the future. But we're gonna talk about what to expect this season. You look at Jonas Valanciunas, got brought here again. Um, he was on a team that he looked like he fit perfectly, really played off other players, but they wanted to go in a different direction on Memphis. Now he's with the Pelicans. He's still going to be able to eat. Don't really fix the spacing problems. Not a good mid-range shooter. Not a great three-point shooter. And he's going to be clogged up because Zion is not a great shooter either. And so is a lot of other guys on this roster. So the post-ups and the spacing is not going to be ideal for Jonas. But he's a guy that can get you a bucket. He's going to play hard, get a lot of rebounds, and he's going to give you a lot of effort. Not the greatest defender. Like I said, not the greatest floor spacer, but he is a guy that's going to do what you ask him to do, not complain, and try to get the job done to his best of his ability. Garrett Temple give them some type of shooting. A guy that can give you some streaky three-point shooting. Been solid, but not much more than that. Would like to see how much minutes he gets and how they actually utilize him within his offense besides just standing in the corner. Is he going to come off screens? If he's just going to move around until he stays open and somebody just leave him open and he got knocked down the shot. That gives them something to have, but at the same time, we'll see what his role will ultimately be at age 35 for this team. Tomas, I should say, Satoransky, has really been an underperforming guy so far. A guy that you look at as a solid rotation player, can come in and give you some ball handling and can give you some type of aggression, but hasn't really been a great shooter or the greatest playmaker either. So it's kind of interesting to see what he's going to be on this roster if he doesn't, apply those things on this team either. I don't really see him being a significant player on this team, especially because he's also not a great defender. So it's going to be interesting to see what coach does with this team and how he gets the best out of this team and how he utilizes a guy like Thomas and Garrett Temple on his roster. James, we'll see if he's on the roster and if he stays. He's fighting for a roster spot. Trey Murphy, I thought was a steal in the draft. A guy that's lanky and long, can give you three-point shooting. We'll see if he's a good defender in the league. He's going to be a rookie, so I don't expect him to be a transformative defender. But if his mid-range shooting and his three-point shooting does translate, that's good for them because they need a wing that can give them spacing, that doesn't need the ball, but can do a little bit more if necessary. So we'll see what he becomes in the league, but looks like a young, interesting player that I'm definitely going to keep a watch out for because he looks very good. Marshall, we don't really know what he's going to be. They got a lot of wings on his roster. I don't really see him having a huge role or significant impact on this team this season, but he's worth mentioning because he's on the roster. Luzada, I believe his name is. I don't really see him having a huge role on this team or even making it probably. So we'll see what happens with him. Kyra Lewis Jr. has been an aggressive point guard. They're going to need him just because I don't really like their point guard situation this season. and he's going to have to be a guy that can give them some type of penetration and playmaking. Not a great finisher, not a great playmaker, but he's only 20. We'll see what he added to his game and see what he can do in a new role, especially since Lonzo Ball is completely going off this roster. Maybe he can give you 15 and 25 minutes of production and give you a little bit of variety that the other point guards can't offer. Herbert Jones, which is a hilarious name. Don't really see him getting a lot of burn or a lot of playing time or having an impact on this roster this season if he stays on it. Brandon Ingram has been huge for this team. Coming here when the Lakers just didn't want him, was known as a guy that could be an all-star two-way player. Hasn't lived up to that defensive potential. Hasn't been as dominant as a scorer that his size and his length would suggest. His mid-range has improved, but he struggled finishing the difficult ones, even if it was over smaller defenders. Still is a guy that can give you some three-point shooting, some playmaking and creation. Not an elite player, but still a wing you would like to have because everything you want in the wing he can do. Just not elite at a lot of areas, but great at some areas and good at others. So you rather have him at 24 than a lot of other prospects because he still has the upside. We'll see if he continues to get better and put it all together. But I like what I have seen out of him throughout his career. And now we actually just get to see what he really going to be with a new coach in a new role. And maybe, plays a little different depending on what the coaches have him do. I think his name is Dalton. I don't see him being on the roster making a huge impact. Willie Holman Gomez, they brought him in. He's a center that's 6'11", mobile, very exciting, fun player. Will give them a different look at that center position and possibly can give them space. We'll see if he can make the mid ranges and the threes in the future. But outside of that, just a rotation big that can give them mobility and length. We'll see what he is on his roster. But he looks like a third string center, and that's what he's been really. Jackson Hayes still developing, still growing, was drafted as a teenager as a project. Hasn't been able to put it all together still to this day at the center position. Hasn't been a great rebounder, hasn't been a great defender. Still can't space the floor at that center position. Doesn't look amazing for him, but he hasn't even really been a legitimate rotation player either at this point in his age. It just shows you how far he really was when he got drafted. Really got drafted off length and potential. Still don't have the center body either at his age, but we'll see maybe two to 3 more years. Maybe he can literally be a starter. He's just not there now. Josh Hart has been a solid rotation player in this league. Can give you some two-way combo defense with switchability. Can give you some solid three-point shooting. Can give you some perimeter scoring. Not consistent at creating his own shot, but he can do it. Has been a hard worker. Has been a guy that goes in and not complain and get the job done. You need guys like that, especially because they lost a lot of guards, especially productive ones. And at least you know you're going to get that out of Josh Hart. Devontae Graham, not the hugest fan of him. He takes a lot of shots. The best part about him that he's aggressive and he's always looking to score. And he's fearless. This guy's going to take the shots. He's going to be aggressive looking for a shot. And he's going to try to make plays. His efficiency isn't there. Not the greatest three-point shooter. Not the greatest mid-range scorer. Don't really have finishing in his game. But he's a guy that's going to get him up. He's a guy that's going to let it fly. And if they're going in, he's going to win you a lot of games. If he's missing, he might lose you a lot of games. But that's their guard. And I'm not huge on Devontae Graham. And like I said, not really sold on him either. But at least you got a guy that's going to take a lot of shots. Somebody's going to have to help Zion score alongside Ingram. And Devontae Graham gives them something that Lonzo wouldn't do. Lonzo didn't want to attack. He didn't want to score a lot. At least they answered that problem with Graham. So that's going to be an interesting fit. And Waywin Gabriel, he's interesting too at that power forward position. Gives them switchability, mobility. Not the greatest spacer, which they would need at the 4/5 position if they want to go small. It'll be interesting to see what he's going to do for them. Undersized when it comes to weight and strength, especially for that position. But he's only 24, hasn't had a huge role in the NBA. Maybe he can change that this season. Jose, I don't really see him being on the roster, honestly, and having a huge role. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's going to be interesting because he's a big guard that can play the 1 or the 2 because his playmaking ability. Still not the greatest scorer, not a great shooter either. We'll see if he improved in those areas this season. He's going to need to be if he wants to be an NBA starter. Also, another guy that's not a committed or willing defender. He's going to have to change that mentality if he wants to have a huge impact in his league, or his offense is going to have to outweigh his defense to really warrant him minutes, especially because he makes a lot of bad decisions and turnovers. That's what you expect from a young player, especially at the guard position, the toughest position in the league because there's so many good ones. But if he wants to make a name for himself, he's going to have to continue to compete, continue to get better, continue to push himself, especially when it comes to scoring and playmaking and decision making. If he really wants to be a legitimate player in this league, which he still does have the potential to do. And then you got Big Zion, a guy that put himself in the MVP, I mean, the All NBA conversation. I ultimately didn't pick him on my All NBA team, and neither did the other voters as he missed it. Had a huge season where he just absolutely bulldozed people, was able to finish, was able to get to the basket, was able to show his playmaking ability. Still not an elite rebounder, even though he has great athleticism, has been a bad to terrible defender with help, rotation, and even individual coverage, which is something that you wouldn't have thought with his athleticism and his strength. He would be able to have that as an advantage, but that has nowhere near translated. Was known as a solid, respectable defender in college. Hasn't been close to that so far in the NBA. But when it comes to getting a bucket, you need guys that you can give the ball to and they can score even in tough, difficult situations. And Zion finishing and ability around that paint, he has done that. The question is, can he stretch his game out or even just improve his free throw shooting? Because if you can get to the basket and you can get a bucket, you're an important and valuable player in this league. Hence why he got the conversation for All NBA talk. Because when you're getting 27 points per game, that's not easy to do, especially when you don't have the greatest spacing, and especially when you don't have the greatest playmakers around you, and you were still able to produce and do those things. But that doesn't mean that he should be satisfied. This guy has shown that he's driven. He wants to be great. That's what helped him become the number one pick. That's what helped him get in the conversation for an All NBA team. And I don't think that's going to change this year. This is his team. This is his organization. He is the best player and the franchise player on this roster. The question to me will be, can you win a title with Zion as your best player? That's something that they still trying to figure out. What pieces they need, what type of roster they need to put around them, and can they even get the talent that they need to get over the hump and even be a playoff team, which is something they haven't been able to do since he's been with this team. And that's something they at least trying to do to take baby steps and go into winning the title eventually. Zion doesn't seem happy. He doesn't really seem interested in staying here long term. They don't really have a direction to me this year to be a playoff team, and they actually not terrible enough to be a lock for a top 5 pick. So they find themselves in no man's land where they're not terrible, they're also not good enough, and they also do need another lottery pick that can turn into a superstar to help Ingram and Zion if they want to keep that duo together to eventually get to the next level and be a playoff team and even more dangerous. But not too many superstars are asking to go here. Plus, they win in too many games to even get a lottery pick that can help this team change directions. So they're in a tough situation. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be angry because I don't see this team making the playoffs again. They're going to be respectable. They're going to be competitive. They're going to have a lot of highlights and a lot of fun. But ultimately, if you're not a great defensive team, you don't have elite talent, you don't even have 2 guys on your roster that's going to lead when it comes to defense and dominating offensively, both of the players will have to do that, and they just don't have that on his roster. Plus, they don't play any defense. Plus, they have lack of perimeter scoring and shooting alongside Zion and Ingram, and that's a recipe for disaster and failure. And that's what we continue to see with this roster. They have a lot of talent that's going to be interesting, the Nikels, the Trays, but ultimately they still have to develop. They still have to put it together, and they have to do it while Zion is still on the roster, unless they're going to be right back in the lottery trying to get a number 1 pick to try to build a championship team around them. We've seen them lose Chris Paul because they couldn't be a championship team. We've seen them lose Anthony Davis because they couldn't be a championship team. And we most likely will see the same thing happen with Zion as they haven't even made the playoffs. At least with those 2 players they did. But we never looked at that Chris Paul team as a contender. Neither did we deal with the Anthony Davis team, and they ultimately both left and did make it to the finals. And Anthony Davis, and including Drew Holiday, are now champions on the roster too. So Zion, he's going to have to play hard. He's going to have to continue to grow and develop and become the best player that he can be to put this team in the best situation to win. But we still have to see him have the necessary and requisite talent to get it done, and they just don't have that again this year. So Pelicans fans, y'all will miss the playoffs. Y'all will most likely not even be in a playing team this year. And if y'all are worse because of injury or something, maybe y'all get another lottery pick to add to this duo to give y'all more hope to possibly be a championship team in the future. But if y'all don't get a top 5 pick or a guy that can really change the trajectory of this team and give y'all a little bit more upside with superstar potential, y'all will be losing Zion and y'all will be rebuilding again in the next couple years. That's just the reality of it, and that's what exactly is going to happen. But y'all still have him on a rookie contract. Y'all do have a chance to get him extended, and maybe he asks for a trade 3 years, 4 years from now, or maybe y'all can get the talent that y'all need by bottoming out or somebody getting traded and you get them and they want to stay. But ultimately, it looks like y'all going to lose Zion and y'all will not be a playoff team this year. Other than that, see y'all tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoy y'all day. Quinn Wade, Basketball Analysis signing out. Stay blessed.